Yeah, welcome everybody. Got the June conference call. Yeah, as I say, hope we're all enjoying what there is of the summer so far. Um, don't see anybody new on the call just yet, but maybe there will be. Welcome, Kush, seeing you just joined. Obviously we're having our usual meetup and talking about what we're doing together in our advocacy, and want to share, as we usually do, what things are going on from the office point of view as well as from your point of view in the grassroots network. And I see that our expert speaker has not joined yet, but I'll carry on with the confidence that he will. Fingers crossed. So I think I've turned captions on. Yep, so let's have the usual housekeeping messages. Please do keep yourself muted during the call. If you've got any comments or questions, I'll try and deal with them during the by looking at the chat box. Is somebody not on mute? There we go. Yeah, as I said, closed captions are on. You can turn them off or on yourself using the toolbar in Zoom. And as always, we're recording the conference. But if you don't want to be seen, then please feel free to turn your video off. So yeah, just over to everybody to say hello if you want to, if you haven't already.
I'll say hello again, just in case.
Thanks, Pete. See a bit of waving there. So as usual, as we've started to do the last few months, we'll also keep the meeting open for a few minutes after the end of the formal call, after 9 o'clock, if you want to have a bit of a chat. So I'm going to carry on with the usual kind of review that I do of what's going on at the moment, that's relevant to the issues that Results and works on. Perhaps unsurprisingly, nearly all of the things that I have to talk about are around the general election. It's the big news at the moment, obviously, and it's going to play a big part in the way that we campaign over the next few months, not least because obviously the Westminster parliamentary procedures and kind of government protocols that kick in when elections happen. So I'm going to hope that our speaker will come and be able to talk to us about that, because otherwise we're going to have a short call. And obviously, some of us in this call, probably many of us, have seen these quite a few times before, but there will be people on the call who are new. I've just seen a new person join. Benedicta, welcome. I'm just going to carry on. So we're going to be talking about the impact of the election on our campaigning. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I guess people will cover some detail on that. Obviously the political campaigning in the first couple of weeks has kind of done what we would have expected it to do, which is to cover mainly domestic issues. So, you know, the economy, immigration, NHS, all the things that directly affect people's lives here in the UK, and obviously much less about international affairs, particularly global poverty. So nutrition, access to health, education in other countries, and even sustainable development more broadly. We wouldn't expect to see so much coverage of that during an election period, because it's about people's immediate concerns. So our action this month is raising these very issues. And I think that's very important, because if we aren't raising them with election candidates, it's probable that few other people are. So, as I say, we'll have, I've seen that our speaker has joined, which is great, but I will just do a general introduction in the usual way. So in the last few days before Parliament was prorogued or kind of suspended for the election, we were really pleased to see that some of the MPs that we work closely with continuing to raise global issues with the government right up to the final few days of Parliament. So, for example, some of you probably know that Results provides a secretariat to the All-Party Parliamentary Group, or APPG, on global nutrition. So just as a reminder, or for those of you who don't know, APPGs are groups of Westminster MPs who want to focus on this particular issue. And Results staff members support 4 APPGs out of many hundreds, probably, that cover the issues that we work on. So nutrition is one of them, but also tuberculosis, education, and vaccinations. And now the co-chair of the nutrition APPG, who is a Labour peer called Lord Ray Collins, former, possibly continuing trade unionist, was vocal in Parliament on the 22nd of May on the topic of how conflict and food insecurity in Ethiopia is causing long-term malnutrition. In this case, speaking in the Lord's Chamber. Now, this sort of stuff happens all the time, but perhaps less so on our issues, but we try to get as much as we can. And this sort of political intervention is exactly what causes the government to raise this issue up their political agenda. So, of course, we're always very pleased when we see supportive parliamentarians take on this kind of action, whether it was incited by Results or not. And I'm going to put a link to Lord Collins's intervention in the chat. In case you're interested in seeing it directly, this is just a very short video clip, just in case you want to see what he had to say about nutrition in Ethiopia. So obviously I need to say, and you'll mostly all know this, that we work across all the political parties. So in this particular case, the other co-chair of the APPG on nutrition is Scottish Conservative MP David Mundell, who's also incredibly active on this particular topic in Parliament. Where are we next? Yeah, so I'm going to share a couple of other pieces of work that some parliamentarians have done. Another senior parliamentarian we've worked with in the last Parliament is called Virendra Sharma, who's Labour MP for Ealing Southall, who's actually standing down this election now. And he's been co-chair of the APPG on global tuberculosis and has written a really good article on the importance of vaccinations for eliminating diseases. And he's particularly talking about the fact that the COVID pandemic has shown how crucial vaccinations are. And obviously by now we all know that, and a number of you have done quite a bit of campaigning on that. So that includes vaccinations for TB, of course, as well, which is his area of interest. So here's another excellent example of why we, both staff and volunteers at Results, spend quite a lot of our efforts engaging with the political process and trying to make that change on the issues we care about and to help the government make a real difference in the world. So I'm also just going to try and post, there we go, Virendra's article. And it's a really nicely thought through and well-written article. And that's on vaccinations. A third article I would like to share, not by a parliamentarian this time, is on the website of Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, on the topic of antimicrobial resistance, which we asked you to campaign on back in March. Now, the reason I want to share this one is because it kind of links up some of our issues. We've talked about the idea of antimicrobial resistance in relation to tuberculosis. And as we said in our action materials, and you may well be familiar with that now, tuberculosis accounts for about a third of all deaths caused by antimicrobial drug-resistant pathogens. So this article on the Gavi website is a really good explainer of how vaccinations can play a part in reducing the amount of disease overall. So this is a link between our vaccinations work and perhaps our AMR and TB work. Basically, the vaccinations will reduce the need for, reduce the amount of disease overall, which is a good thing in itself, reduce the amount of need for drugs, and that will reduce the risk that disease-causing microbes will develop a resistance. So if you follow this topic at all closely, you'll probably be aware that reducing the unnecessary use of drugs, particularly antibiotics, is a key measure in reducing the evolution of more resistant strains of diseases. And I would like to thank all of you for the work that you guys did back in March on our March action, raising this important and technical and probably quite underappreciated health topic. So again, I've just posted that article in the chat. There's one other thing I was going to say. Oh yes, that's right. I think we were fairly pleased by the government's reaction to that action. and their engagement with the international processes on this, which is, as you know, at the UN high-level meeting planned for September on AMR. And this work has now been confirmed as headed up by Dame Sally Davis, who is the UK's special envoy on AMR. And she's very well respected across politics and across academia. And in case you're interested in her, I'll just put a biography of her from the government website in the chat. So all of that's good stuff. And just going to conclude my opening remarks on what's going on at the moment with a reference still on the topic of political influencing to last month's what I'm calling a masterclass on parliamentary questions. So on this call, Vinny, who I'll be properly introducing in a couple of minutes, he wanted to join us but wasn't able to as planned. And so he very kindly recorded his session, which we played to you over Zoom. Some of you might remember that. And I hope you found it useful. And we put that recording up on the results website, and I'm going to paste that again into the chat, just in case any of you missed it or you want to see it again. That idea of Parliament helping MPs to write effective parliamentary questions and reduce the amount of effort they have to go into, or helping them kind of understand what it is that's the most important thing. So really good bit of work there that you can use whenever you like. I'm just seeing someone's. Oh, Chris has just posted a documentary in the chat. The role of animal agriculture, talking about antimicrobial resistance and pandemic risk, featuring Dame Sally Davis. So thanks for sharing that, Kush. Yeah, hadn't seen that. Thank you. Okay, so where are we doing for time? Good. So I'm going to now share the usual kind of roundup of what you guys have been doing around the UK over the last month. And to start off with, I really want to congratulate the Results Scotland group for their Stirling efforts, which weren't in fact in Stirling, but are in Edinburgh, and on educating the public on the topic of nutrition at the annual Meadows Festival in Edinburgh that just happened last weekend. So very well done to all of you guys on your stall. I wonder if any of you are prepared to just describe what you did and how the day went.
Yes. Good evening, Navid.
Hi, Valame. Welcome.
Thank you. Really, the stall, the festival went well. We had a stall at the Meadows Festival last weekend on the 1st and 2nd of June. And really what we did was to make awareness about the issue of nutrition, and as well advocate about results and the work we do. So basically, we had the stall, we had people come by to partake in a nutrition quiz. And it was so exciting because we had a prize to come along with it. And many people found that really interesting. I have a few slides to share.
Are you able to share your screen?
I think so.
You should have a sort of little green button in the middle at the bottom saying, yeah, you've done it.
Okay, I think all right. So basically, we had this campaign at the festival. So this was what our stall looks like. Can you hear the
We've got somebody. Can I ask everybody to mute so that we can hear Blanley? That's great. That's quiet again. Go ahead, Blanley.
Okay. All right. So I was saying. Let me just turn the volume down. I wanted the clip to have the audio on, but I guess it's just disrupting my speech. Anyways, yeah. This was what our stall looks like. We had the nutrition quiz, we had the prizes, we had mandarin, orange, monkey nuts, and grapes to give to our passers-by. there was a QR code for them to scan that takes them to the website to see what we do at Results. And we had sign-up sheets for whoever wants to learn more. And, we told them about today's meeting, about the conference call. And it was really exciting to see people interested in nutrition questions. We had interactions with different people ranging from different ages. We had this young boy who Kathy was asking questions, about nutrition. And it was really interesting to see. People were so excited and they found it really intriguing. And it was even an eye-opener to the knowledge people have around nutrition, what they think, the politics even around global health and all of that is. And we got their opinions. So we got to see people's views about these very pertinent issues. So I wonder if I can just play this so that we hear. This was just like a kind of discussion we had during the quiz about how climate change impacts global food security and nutrition. And I found this response very interesting. So I'll just allow you play.
It was whether perhaps the debate would be less political, and so through that it's harder to on in a kind of structured way, plan year to year, and therefore have institutions relies on planning, I guess, and being able to predict how much food you can grow in a particular area, the yield would be, etc. So yeah, that how it affects.
So, I mean, we were able to capture these words. We asked questions about what they think about the UK government spending on nutrition and global health, and their responses and views were really, really, really interesting. But to cap it all, we had further interviews, and we got people to, oh my, yeah. We also got people we got people to sign up to we got their emails, and we got them to scan the barcodes. And there was this very interesting instrument from Mali for people to just enjoy themselves. So it was really nice. It was beautiful at the store, and it was really a great opportunity for myself to interact with other Results Scotland members, and also to interact with people, build that. And one fascinating thing for me was even to talk to kids who are still in secondary school, to tell them how they can create change in their environment, how they can join different campaign actions. And they found Results UK really interesting. And yeah, we hope to see more of them join our group here in Edinburgh, and by extension Scotland. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Bilal. That's amazing. That's such a great presentation, really professional, and lovely to see what you've done there. I really like some of the things you said about talking to people of different ages, and I thought the quiz idea was brilliant, really sort of trying to find out what people know and engaging them that way. I mean, it looks like a great day, and just a massive congratulations to all of you in Scotland Group. I'm just going to put another little link in the chat. I know that you met some people from the One campaign. I was had them. They tweeted us, so I put a link to their tweet, which we then retweeted, and they've got some different photographs as well on top of the ones that Bolene just shared. So just looks like a great day, and well done. Did any other members of the group want to say anything, or any questions for anybody?
2 days, not 1 day, two
2
full
days.
days.
Yes.
So we really had a long, hard haul, and great credit to everyone for sticking with it.
Okay.
I know that on the call we've got Ahmed Farhan, who we met on during the weekend, and also Benedicta. So if either of you is feeling the opposite of shy and wants to say hello, then we'll all be delighted to say hello to you. So just that.
Yeah, hello. My name is Farhan. I'm from Malaysia. I'm actually Bolanle's classmate, if she noticed me. Hi, Bolanle.
Hello, Farhan. Thank you
Yeah,
for
but I didn't get to meet her during. I get to meet both of you too. Um, yeah, it was a really nice session. I get to learn a lot. Yeah.
Thank you, Farhan. Nice to meet you, and you, Benedict, as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm Benedicta. Thank you so much for the opportunity to really learn about Results UK. I know Bolanle, she's a very good friend of mine and also an advocate. And so I passed by the store, not knowing the quiz at all, but I was really intrigued at how the work at Results UK is really championing nutrition for people elsewhere, and I'm very passionate about that. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, and I'm glad you enjoyed that interaction, and you're very welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So that's a really great work on part of all of you in Scotland, and a huge thank you. I also want to just thank you for all of the letter writing you've been doing over recent months. Obviously, that's a very staple activity of your work. We've had a really good number of letters written on the AMR and polio campaigns that we ran in March and April. And some of you have also shared your letters from the May action already on holding the UK accountable for its promises made at the high-level meeting on TB back in September 2023, on the Stigma Kills report, and ensuring that no people suffering from TB also suffer unnecessary economic hardship. And also thank you to those of you who've been sharing that you've been starting to think about your parliamentary candidates, which is the subject of this month's action, which we emailed you about last Friday. Now the election has actually been called. We actually changed the supporting materials to reflect where we are now. So it is a bit different from the information we first sent you back in February about contacting your candidates. So in case you need the link to that, as I say, we have emailed it to you. That updated advice on contacting candidates has just gone into the chat. And then I'm almost ready to shut up. Apologies, I feel like I've gone on for a long time this time, but I'm really looking forward to seeing some of you at our summer gathering in London this Sunday, the 9th of June, from 12 noon to 5:30 in the Kelthorpe Community Gardens in Gray's Inn Road. And I'm really looking forward to that opportunity to meet you in person. We've spent such a lot of time talking on Zoom these days, don't we? So we'll be talking about, what Results doing on global poverty issues, how we're doing it, and, what are the new challenges that are coming up that we have to meet. So there is still just time to sign up if you haven't. And again, the link to that is in the chat. Before I hand over to really move on to the topic of tonight's discussion, just want to open up in case there's anybody around the country who has anything else that they would like to share. Okay, well, as I say, please feel
Sorry,
free.
can I
Oh,
just go in?
yeah.
The online group are going to have something to eat afterwards. Okay, Marcelo, do you want to say anything? And everybody's welcome.
Hi everyone, Marcelo Alvarenga, and I am part of the online group, and my peers and myself, we are organizing a dinner after the results summer gathering. Anyone is welcome. The idea is just to gather and talk about what we've been doing, and also networking, socializing, and exchanging the different strategies that we do to engage people, whether it's virtual or in person. Anyone welcome, and we could share the address of the venue, and it would be nice to connect with other campaigners who are doing things such as the group in Scotland and ourselves who are doing it virtually at the moment. But it will be nice to connect with you and see you in person. And we are excited. Anyone's welcome. Thanks, Jill.
Thanks, Marcelo. That's really great. Okay, so I'm going to move on now and move on to the topic of the general election. So I've obviously introduced its importance in very general terms, but to get us way into the detail that we need, I'm going to introduce somebody who many of you know. It is Results' Senior Parliamentary Officer on TB, Vinnie Wooding, to address this topic, as I say, in much more depth. So not just how it affects the mechanics of our advocacy whilst the election is actually happening, but also how we relate to the new parliamentarians and the things that they do over the medium and longer term. So welcome to you, Vinnie. And also, before you jump in, thank you again for your recorded session last month.
No, that's it. That's completely fine. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't attend in person. I was whisked into some emergency childcare for my younger sister, so I'm sorry I couldn't be here in person. But as I think as I said on the video at the time, I didn't want to let you down. So I hope the video came in useful, and I believe Naveed smashed it out the park with the technology, so it all went perfectly well.
Almost. I let myself down right at the very end. Okay, so we didn't get to meet you properly last month, but we do now. And so for those who don't yet know you, would you be able to give us like a brief sketch of your role at Results and what was your journey into the very specialized world of advocacy on tuberculosis?
Yes, yeah, happy to. So hi everyone, for those of you that don't know me, obviously I'm Vinnie. I've been at Results for it'll be 3 years in July. So I'm a bit of a seasoned Results veteran at this point. And for the entire time there, I've been working on the TB portfolio. But my background has always been in kind of politics and around Parliament. So I started my career sort of 10 years ago. And I was running an MP's office in Westminster. Stephen Twigg, he was the previous chair of the International Development Select Committee, and he was also my local MP in Liverpool, which is where I'm speaking to you from tonight. So I started working for him, and through his work on the International Development Select Committee, I became interested in international development, and that was my first engagement with Results, with Results grassroots campaigners and with Results as an organisation in general. So the seed was very much planted back then, and then after many years of Parliament and a couple of years in the civil service, I was fortunate enough to get my role at Results working on TB advocacy, and here I am to talk all things Parliament.
Thanks, Vinnie. Thanks for sharing that. So I think we always like to hear a little bit about the person before they get stuck in. So now let's do that, which is our traditional thing of addressing some pre-arranged questions that I hope will kind of open up the topic of discussion before we go right to the floor. So I think the first of these questions should be from Stork Valley. Is that right?
Unmute, fool. Yes. So, these are the questions that I was going to ask my MP. Right, here's the question. Stand back. What is the impact of a general election on international development campaigns?
Yes. Well, as you can probably imagine, the impact is significant. So obviously in our sort of quite unique political system, when the government calls the election, I mean, I'm sure you'll have heard this all along over the last couple of weeks. But once the election is called, we go into the 6-week prorogation period, which is the period that we're in at the moment, where Parliament effectively ceases to exist. MPs cease to be MPs, and the work of the Parliament formally ends. So in that sense, any kind of campaigns that were very specifically driven to the last Parliament are also wrapped up in that Parliament. So let me give an example, for instance. The International Development Select Committee, who I mentioned earlier, that Stephen Twigg was previously the chair of, they'll have a number of ongoing inquiries, and I know one of them off the top of my head was one into SDG 5 on good food and nutrition. When the election is called and Parliament wraps up, that closes. That inquiry is done. Goes onto a shelf somewhere. Doesn't matter how far away they are through the process. If it hasn't been signed off, it is closed. Goes back onto the shelf. There's a potential for it to maybe be picked up in the next Parliament, but obviously that depends on a lot of different factors. And in many sense, that's exactly what the kind of international development campaigns look like in this space at the moment. In many ways, the campaigns and the discourse, the rhetoric, all close with the last Parliament, because if you're, well, I mean, I think it's fairly safe to say that we are going to see a significant turnover in the number of MPs, and not the number of MPs, but the MPs in this election. Quite unusual, actually, if we look over the course of the last 15 years. Probably the 2010 election was the last time when we had such a significant influx of new parliamentarians across the entire side of the House. So not only in the very British ceremonial way have the international development campaigns closed down, with the doffing of the cap in Parliament and the speaking of the French in the House of Lords, but also because we're expecting such a significant turnover in the parliamentarians themselves. Actually, a lot of other international development campaigns are going to have to be paused, because the people that we were talking to and the people that we were hoping to advocate towards are actually no longer going to be there. And I was doing a little exercise before on my own APPG, which Naveed mentioned earlier, the APPG for Global TB. And I had, so when I last checked, it was just a couple of weeks ago before the election was called, I had 40 members. And I believe that post-general election, just because of the number of people who are leaving, my membership drops to 19. So if we're going to sort of see that replicated across Parliament, across APPGs, across campaigns, and so in a lot of ways, the impact is very significant. Both now for the campaigns that we have just finished or that we've been working on, but also for the campaigns that come next.
Thanks, Vinny. I'm sure people will want to pick that up in their questions. For me, that's a really stark number, that even without the impact of which party gets in or not get in greater numbers, that like halving of your number of contacts who are active on TB, that's a massive effect. I'm sure if you think about that replicating across all the other international development issues.
Absolutely.
Let's hold that and move on to the second prepared question, which is coming from Cheshire.
Hi, Vinny. It's Jen here in Cheshire. My question is, are we expecting this election to make much difference to how the next government will approach its responsibilities to global poverty and to global health issues?
That's a great question, Jennifer. Thank you. I'll approach this question first with my idealized rose-tinted goggles on, because I do try to remain the optimist, even though it doesn't often seem like it. So actually, and I can answer it on a spectrum of here's the difference that it would make if absolutely everything went my way, and here's the difference that it would make if reality happens, which it almost certainly will. So if everything went my way, I think the big thing that we're going to see, in the first instance at least, is the really wholesale removal of a lot of development skeptics from Parliament. So if you consider that most of, like, I guess maybe making a couple of sweeping generalizations, the age skeptical members of Parliament are typically on the Conservative side, are typically found on the right of the political spectrum. And we're actually expecting to see, maybe 200 of them lose their seats in this election. So in that sense, there's a really exciting opportunity, because you're going to get a load of new, potentially a lot of Labour, a lot of Liberal Democrat MPs who are coming in kind of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. A lot of them will have worked in development in the past, and we've been working with them. And we know them through our various channels and organizations and whatnot. So I think in that sense, there's a real excitement that we could be getting a kind of crop of development champions coming into Parliament at the same time that we have not seen for a very long time. And And even if you want to sort of stretch it out over, obviously the 2015 election, which the Conservatives won decisively, whilst there were, what we used to consider one nation Tories in that group of MPs who were elected, I think the way that the wind is blowing is that a lot of those Tory MPs aren't going to exist shortly. So I think it's really exciting that we've got all these Labour MPs coming in, and then equally again with the positive glasses on, I think that the Labour Party could use this as an opportunity to really reset how Britain deals with the rest of the world, whether that's through international relation, whether that's through international development or through foreign policy. I think that the sort of legacy of the British over the last couple of years, and by the British I mean the British government, is one of an unreliable partner internationally. As we've seen over the last couple of years, really lackluster pledges to really big international organisations like the Global Fund and Gavi and other organisations like that. And I think that we're going to get a potentially a Labour government which is a lot more internationalist in its outlook. So it's going to want to be in those conversations. It's going to want to be in those rooms. I think we've seen with, especially maybe Rishi Sunak over the past 18 months, a bit more of a shine away from the international arena, maybe to focus on domestic issues. I'm not sure why. I don't profess to understand Rishi Sunak's political operation at all. But I think that when we get a fresh pair of eyes, a fresh pair of Labour MPs, Labour ministers, and what will eventually be a Labour cabinet looking at these issues, I think it will really significantly change the way we do it. Now, that is the idealised view. The reality of the situation, I think, is, I think it still is absolutely correct that the income of new parliamentarians, especially on what we would consider to be the left of politics, is always going to be good for international development issues, general issues around poverty, also other issues about climate change, debt justice, things like that. But where I think the reality of the situation will set in is very much around. I hesitate because I'm skeptical as to the extent that it actually does exist. But the Labour Party's hesitant to want to spend any money on anything, or perceived hesitation to want to spend any money on anything. I'm quietly hopeful that maybe once they're elected and maybe with a significant majority, they'll be able to be a bit looser with play a bit fast and loose with things like international development, because their majority will be so large that they'll be able to get away with those things. But I think there's definitely a little voice in the back of my head that says, if we look even over the last 5 years, when times are tough, what's the first thing that gets cut, or what's the first thing that seems to be on the chopping block? It's international development. It's the international development budget. And whilst I don't believe that the Labour Party are going to be cutting the development budget any further, I think things like a return to 0.7 from where it is at the moment might actually take a little bit longer than we anticipate. So I guess to answer, I guess to sort of tie it up in a neat little bow, I think yes, we are expecting really significant change as a consequence of the election. And even anecdotally, some of the people who I know from within the international development sector who are running for Parliament, obviously, as you can imagine, almost primarily for Labour, are going to be really fantastic champions of Parliament, the likes of which we haven't seen for a very, very long time. So even just having a stronger knowledge base around development issues in Parliament is a good thing. And I think that's the sort of great leap forward that we're going to see with this election.
Thanks, Vinny. Obviously, we're going to continue to work with people from all parties, but I think looking at the way the polls are going, we are going to see a massive change in the makeup and the political makeup. And I think it's fair for us on this kind of internal call of, if you like, friends, having this private conversation about like, what does the likely political change, mean for us as results, without kind of taking for granted what the parties are or aren't going to do, as Vinny sort of outlined. So that's a really good starting point. I'm going to go to the last prearranged question, which is from London, and then we'll open up to the floor after that. So have we got anyone from London?
I'm from London. I can ask it.
Go ahead, Kush. Hi.
Where's it gone?
So what can campaigners do both now and after the election is over?
So again, I think similarly to how it's an exciting time for development, or has the potential to have an exciting time for development, I think it's a really good time for campaigners as well, because similarly to the obviously the turnover that I've outlined in the development in terms of development knowledge within Parliament's going to happen, but across the country, as many as 450 of 650 constituencies are going to have a new MP. That's a new person to target. That's a new person to build relationships with. And then of course it's not just that individual MP. It's their friends. It's the people that they end up on select committees with. It's the people that they end up going on international delegations with. So it's a really great time for a sort of good refresh when it comes to kind of campaigning and when it comes to advocacy, because it's a bit less, I guess, it's a bit less of a hostile environment, really, isn't it? Because what you've got instead is you've got, it's sort of, as I said in the answer to the last question, a load of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed parliamentarians, new parliamentarians who want to come in and want to be seen to be making a difference, getting involved in issues, really testing the waters to see what interests them, what takes their fancy, what kind of issues they want to work on, both in their constituency, but also, as their prerogative to work on national issues as well. So in that regard, it's a great time to start kind of having conversations with candidates, and then of course when the election is over, with the new parliamentarians that'll be in place. So I guess, I mean, certainly like in this kind of pre-election period that we're in, it's always good. One of the things that I know organisations have done.
Well, we lost Vinny by the sounds of it. Have we lost Vinny? Do other people have they lost?
I can't hear him anymore either.
Frozen.
Yeah.
Can
that's
you hear me now?
Oh yes, we've got you now. We've got you back.
Okay, I'll just switch. I'll just switch. Sorry, what are you saying to me?
We might have lost 10-15 seconds of you, maybe. I think.
Okay. Yeah. So all I was going to say was, so as I say, really opportune time to start speaking to candidates, and then post-election the new parliamentarians. And I mean, I guess it kind of, in terms of things that campaigners can be doing, you can write to your local candidates in your constituency, so you can find out who your local candidates are. There is, I'm not entirely sure what the best website is for that at the moment, but I will be able to dig something out and share it with you potentially on Sunday when I see you see some of you at the summer gathering.
We've got some links in the action materials, Vinny, with some
fantastic
websites where most candidates have been shared.
Yes, fantastic. So you can write to your candidates and ask them what they think about development issues, what they think about some of the issues that you're passionate about, and if they really want your vote, they'll write back. And obviously, there's a lot of people who are looking for votes at the moment. So I think it's a really interesting time to ask those kinds of questions. I'm not sure if it's it's not a legal requirement, but a lot of constituencies will hold a public hustings, or several in the lead up to polling day. You can attend those. They're often public meetings. You could go and attend, and you could ask a development related question, which would be fantastic actually, because then you'd have a range of candidates on the stage, and you'd be able to get the response from each of the main kind of parties. And because it's a bit of a different issue, it's maybe not such a constituency issue, you might be able to catch a couple of them off guard, and then really get a good gauge on who's good at this, who can think on their feet, and who deserves my vote at this election based on the development issues. So they're really great things to kind of do while the election campaign is on. And then obviously post-election, we're going to have a huge suite of new MPs. So there's going to be a myriad of opportunities to, write letters. I think, again, MPs will be looking to hit the ground running in their constituency. So they'll want to meet constituents. They'll want to know what the constituents are passionate about. And so it's a real opportunity, a real febrile time for us to get involved there and influence people early on in their political careers. And get them as long-standing advocates for a long time. I think the one thing I just will say is that post-election, it will take an awful long time for MPs to get their offices and respective things set up. So we may see a bit of a lag in the time taken to respond But that's entirely natural, because if you imagine that in many ways, each MP is like their own little small business. And so once they're elected, they then have to sort of set up this business with staff and things like that. So we have to be kind of realistic that we're not going to get these instant responses, but I think it's it's an exciting time, because there's going to be a lot of people who are really keen to be making a difference really quickly.
Thank you, Vinny. And I think that's, those 450, is it? 650 roughly new MPs, they're all going to have to work.
Yeah, I think,
all the things that they're going to need to do in addition to answering constituents' questions, like find out where their office is and all that kind of stuff, I guess.
Yeah. How to be an MP 101, because most of them won't have the foggiest idea.
Great. Well, look, I'm going to open up the floor now to everybody. So as always, please just unmute, ask your question, or you can put it in the chat. And as always, I'm just going to put my phone number in the chat. So if you would prefer to text the number in for any reason, that's 07906 662 571. I'm going to start. I'd see Abbas has had his hand up for a really long time. So I'm going to start with Abbas. Sorry, Abbas. Do go ahead.
I would like to start to say a happy volunteering week for all the volunteers who are working with the Result UK, for all the volunteers in the UK and in all the around the world. Just I put my question in the chat about the pre-election period.
Yes.
For that.
The period.
So really, I become confused today while I been in university in Cardiff, and they start talking about this because we are planning to make something in the refugee weeks after 2 weeks. So they start talking about this. Can you explain to us, please, more about this policy and what you advise us to do as members and volunteers with the Result UK? Thank you.
Thank you, Abbas. And I'll just read that out for people who can't see the chat. So Abbas's question is about what's called the PURDA period, PURDAH, which is the pre-election period where certain things can and can't happen. Does this policy apply to us or just the MPs? So, Vinny, if you could describe what that is, and then how it implicates the work that we do.
Yes. So PURDA applies to all public bodies. And what PURDA basically requires is that during the pre-election period, so which is typically, or which in this instance anyway, is 6 weeks before the general election, during that 6-week period, public bodies aren't allowed to do they're allowed to do things, obviously. Public bodies aren't allowed to be seen to be saying or doing anything which could have an impact on the election, which could impact people's votes. So, for instance, now we're in the election period. For instance, the Ministry of Defence can't turn around tomorrow and say, we're going to build, 3 new aircraft carriers, because we're in the pre-election period, and that would inherently, that's a politically, it would be a politically contentious issue. But irrespective if it would impact the outcome, or it would be perceived to have an impact on people's vote. But it only applies to public bodies. So that is a long way of saying that it doesn't apply to grassroots campaigners like us, or advocates like those of us who are working at Results. What it does mean, though, is that if you write to a government, if you write to the government about something, you won't be able to get a response at the moment. If it's any public body, you won't be able to get a response at the moment, because they're just really, really careful and really quite particular about what they do, because they're very cautious about not being accused of trying to sway people's votes or favouring one party over another, etc., etc. Those rules don't apply to us, but it will just mean that there'll be a bit of a, as I say, a bit of a lag in things like correspondence with government. And obviously, because there are no MPs, you can't really write to MPs at the moment. You can only write to candidates.
Thanks, Vinny. That's a really helpful explanation. And I would add that is exactly the reason why we had to cancel our advocacy day on the Monday the 10th. So the two FCDO teams that we managed to get some meetings lined up with, they basically are no longer able to talk to us, able to make any commitments, and really being very cautious about being seen to talk to the public at this time. So that's why. And then the MP, parliamentarian, it was a member of the Lords, who we'd got a meeting with, basically decided that she was off on the campaign trail instead and wasn't going to meet us after all. So we will be trying to rebuild that afterwards. But that, what's called the purdah period, is exactly why we were suddenly, all of our efforts came to naught, and it wasn't the right time for the meeting. So thank you, Abbas, for your question. I'm going to go to the chat. We've got 8 minutes, so I'm going to try and get through them. So firstly, I'm going to try and paraphrase your question, Jill, but jump in if I've got it wrong. Is international development mentioned much in the party manifestos? And Jill goes on to say that there's a lot of local issues being put at the heart of the campaigning of people in the constituency, or by the candidates rather. And then a follow-up question, or discussion rather, about how to get in touch with candidates when their addresses aren't given. So do you want to take those in turn, Vinny?
Yeah. So the parties haven't released their manifestos yet. They'll still be a couple of weeks away, probably about 2 weeks away. They normally come about 2 or 3 weeks before election day itself. So you can expect those probably in the next kind of 10 days. There will be, I'll be frank, there will be very little mention of international development in any of the manifestos. I imagine, we'll maybe see the most in the Lib Dem one, and then maybe Labour second and the Tories third. It's not, I think, well, again, being frank, international development doesn't obviously win as many votes as other policies do. And so when they're, obviously when they outline these manifesto documents, that's the kind of key policies which they appeal to the broadest number. Development doesn't often make the cut in that sort of political equation, which is obviously really unfortunate. And we would like to see that be different, but it's just, unfortunately, the political reality of it. So I think we'll be lucky if we get a sentence. Might get a small paragraph, maybe 2 sentences in the Labour one. Maybe something a wee bit longer in the Lib Dem one. But yeah, there's not going to be anything substantial really. And then on getting in contact with your candidates. I mean, so there are depending on what your constituency is looking like, there will be candidates for all the major parties in all of the constituencies. I think the best way to get into to do that is if you can find the name of the individual candidates who are running in your constituency, and then Google them individually. A lot of them will have their own websites with which will have like a form or an email address or a phone number you can get in contact with them with. So I definitely recommend that as as a sort of primary avenue for it. As I said, I think Naveed said that we'd shared some resources which allow people to find who's standing in each constituency, and then I'd say from there kind of take their names individually and put them into a search engine, and each of them should have a website if they're competent.
Thanks, Vinny. So I notice Jill has put in the chat that we do already have a statement from the Lib Dems out. So thank you for sharing that. That's really great. And
it's in their manifesto. There's quite a lot.
So definitely head over to that if you want to have a look at it. And Kush has rightly reminded us that other parties are available. And I particularly actually wanted to mention the Scottish National Party, who've been quite supportive on some of our issues. And in fact, one of their MPs is chair of our APPG on vaccinations. So other parties out there with policies relevant to our work as well. I think we have probably got, oh, hang on. Pete, I'm going to say yes. Can you read out your specimen email? Is that one that you've drafted that you're sending sort of in general to candidates?
Yeah, I'm also sending in the chat, I'm also sending a link to how to find your candidate. And
yeah, I've seen that. Thank you, Pete. That looks great.
Okay, so come back, Pete. Here we are. I'm going to send this out as a single email to all my 5 candidates at the moment. What is your commitment to ending world hunger, and what measures do you think your government needs to take to achieve that goal? And what is your commitment to reducing the increase in climate change, and what measures do you think your government needs to take to achieve that goal? NB, I'm not asking this of your party, but of you personally. That's it.
Amazing.
That's a great one. Great. Perfect.
Nice and concise, can't be misconstrued. Wonderful. I wish you great luck with that, Pete. And yeah, we're all going to have our own way of writing it, aren't we? Our own way of doing it. But thank you so much for sharing that. I'm gonna risk running over by a minute and take one last question. Would we, Pete, would you mind sharing the text of that, do you think, and sharing it with others on this call, do you think?
Sure.
So if anyone who wants to see what Peter just read, email me and Pete can...
I'll email you or just put it on the chat.
Or just put it on the chat. Yeah, that's the easy way.
Right. So just checking for
not very long, is it?
It might have time.
Time for one last question, if we keep the question and the answer short. Maybe we're all heartily fed up with politics already, but we will come out the other side and be able to do our advocacy again, as Vinny was sharing. There we go. We've got the wording in the chat from Pete. So if you want to copy the chat, you can. Amazing. Well, look, I think it's 2 minutes to 9 now, so I am going to close the call. We've run out of time. Vinny, thank you so much for sharing your specialist knowledge with us. Oh, thank you, Florence, for sharing the information about the online group's meal arrangements. Can someone share when that's supposed to be? What time is that supposed to be?
No, yes, it will be between 6 and 7. The summer gathering ends at 5 p.m. So we're thinking that we could do between 6 to 7 p.m.
We'll end at 5:30, but yeah, okay, great. Right after the summer gathering. Thank you. That's great. And yeah, thank you for welcoming the rest of us. So, Vinny, yeah, thank you so much. I hope people have found that a useful way of unpacking some of the details of how Westminster politics works. You know, that world of the Palace of Westminster is somewhat arcane. And as always, we'll be posting a recording of this call on the website in case you'd like to come back to the topic. But we do need to finish the call now. The next Grassroots call is on the first Tuesday of July, as always. That's Tuesday, the 2nd of July at 8 p.m. So for those of you who are coming to the summer gathering, I really look forward to seeing you in just a few days' time. Sunday should be a great day. And for those who signed up to the Monday Advocacy Day, as I said, we will reorganise those meetings after the election. So we will be in touch. Watch this space. But right now, I have genuinely no idea when those meetings might be. So I'll be working on that pretty much from July onwards. So for now, enjoy the rest of your evenings if you're leaving us, and if you're staying for a few minutes of informal chat, then please do. But thank you for joining us this evening, and thanks again to our speaker, Vinny.